Welcome to the Everyday Matters podcast, a show from NetSmart. Everyday Matters is about the opportunity we have to make a difference. Our collective, cause-connected mission is about impacting healthcare in meaningful ways. We seek to provide a place to share stories about the progress being made, how to overcome challenges, and ideas to inspire. Each conversation is about the work being done and the opportunity before us. Whether it's about advocacy, awareness, or challenging stigmas, we know that together anything and everything is possible. Let's get into the show where we learn from yesterday in pursuit of tomorrow. Here, we all work to ensure every day matters.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm really excited for today's podcast because I'm not just interviewing someone who inspires me and challenges me to be better, but Lee's a friend. Lee Jost joins me today from NCircle, as the executive director, and I had the opportunity to connect with him a few years ago, and little did I know what I was getting myself into as we worked together on the board of United Community Services of Johnson County. And I've learned so much from Lee, not just about some of the things that we're going to talk about in the vision and mission that he's very passionate about, but our community and how we can connect and work together to truly make a difference. And I can, without question, tell you today that I'm an absolute better person because my paths has crossed with him. And I hope you get as much out of our conversation today as I've gotten in how we can make a difference. The NCircle tagline is better together. It's one of the ones I'm very passionate about, truly believing that when we come together and work together, we can make the difference by being the difference. Lee, welcome, and I'll have you give a little bit of introduction for yourself if you don't mind, and then we'll jump into some questions.
That sounds great, Tom. Thanks for the opportunity to join you and the folks that are part of the podcast. My name is Lee Jost. I'm the executive director for NCircle. NCircle is a nonprofit that is focused on connecting people to community opportunities, to stabilize families and futures, and to end the cycle of incarceration. We're all about trying to help people who are returning to the community from incarceration or who are currently in the community and on probation and parole, help them relaunch stably, especially around employment. I'm a minister, Tom, you know that. I've been a pastor in the community for decades, and I've been engaged in a host of different ways. Started out when I was with my kids in elementary school. I was a parent leader and started a program called Watchdogs at our school. And then over the next several decades of ministry in the community, I just wanted to find ways to serve, to find those who were underdogs and be a champion. And that ended in about 10 years ago. One of the guys in our congregation said, I can help people learn how to weld, and especially those that are incarcerated. And we were doing a program called Strengthening Families at the time. We'll talk about that a little more later. But when that happened, Tom, I thought, here's an opportunity for us to connect people in the community to people who needed it. And the church got it. The people I was working with got it, about just being a resource in our community. So 10 years ago, we started doing that, and we just started with a simple welding program. And then in 2014, we launched a nonprofit. And by 2015, we were fully engaged with Johnson County Corrections, really focused on offering an opportunity to take people who are returning to the community. And think about this, Tom, 98% of those that are in prison right now are going to return. And in Johnson County, at Johnson County Corrections, 60% of those that are in county corrections return back to Johnson County. So they're my neighbors. And this is an opportunity for me to invest in my neighbor when they return. And we started doing welding training, and that has grown into welding, forklift, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Office, a host of things. And it's also blossomed into this opportunity to have mentors, connect with people, and just find ways to support. So that's a little bit about me. I mean, I just love the opportunity every morning to get up and figure out a new way to serve my fellow man.
Well, and I think, Lee, 10 years, let's be candid, that's not common. You launched with a vision, with not a whole lot. And here you are 10 years making a difference. One of the reasons why I want to have the conversation. And I think before we dive into some of the topics and programs, I don't think everyone always understands what the opportunity is or even what the challenges are for those who have found themselves incarcerated in finding their way back, if you will. And let's talk a little bit about that around the vision and mission. And, now you have a partnership with the county. What kind of things is it that you're looking to do for the person who finds this part of their life at a crossroad, and really how they navigate forward and how you partner with them and others to find their way?
That's a good question. I think sometimes we have this mental image of folks that are incarcerated as really grizzled veterans of the prison system. And that's our mental model. The reality is most of the people we work with look just like you and I, Tom. They're folks that have made mistakes. And the truth is people go to jail or go to prison because they've done something wrong. And the challenge then is the majority of those people who do something wrong will end up coming back to their communities. And when they come back to their communities, they often come back under-resourced for a host of reasons. I could share so many stories, Tom, but think about this. Just one guy that recently I worked with who came in through one of our programs, 10 years of incarceration. Think about how much your cell phone changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
How much your computer changed in the last 10 years. So one of the things we want to do is figure out how to help them navigate those changes. We offer digital literacy so that they can come back into their community with an understanding of how to operate Windows and how to operate a computer. But then, Tom, it's the human interaction that's also missing. Often people come back with that scarlet eye on their sweatshirt. They've been incarcerated.
Yeah.
What I want to do is I want to demystify that. I want people to understand that these are human beings just like you and I. They've made mistakes. And as they relaunch, they have a vision of a life that does not include going back to incarceration. So how can I be there to support, encourage, and help them to fulfill that vision?
Yeah. I think, Lee, this is one of the things, and it's tough to find common ground these days. So I'm going to attempt to do that. And I may be naive thinking that common ground is still possible. But I do believe we all find ourselves fairly united that we want a healthy and thriving community. And if that is to exist, then we have to press in and help the community. The community itself is alive, it's living. It's made up of people. And good things happen, bad things happen, challenging things happen. And a person who finds their narrative, their story in a place where they've been incarcerated didn't just arrive there. Usually, as you and I know, there's many circumstances that led up to that moment. And then afterwards, and they're hoping, dreaming to find their way out of that afterwards. And it's only compounded because often what got them there still has to be unpacked and resolved, while now dealing, as you referred to it, as the scarlet eye, if you will, around incarceration and what those next steps are. And that's why I think programs like these are essential and critical, not just to have them, but for everyone in the community to understand, because we all play participants in them in regards to overcoming challenges and opportunities. So, Lee, if you don't mind, I want to jump into some of those so that people understand what some of these things are. And I'm going to talk about the three. You may have a few more, but the three that I'm aware of. And then if there are some others, we can hit those at the end. So very first one I want to hit on is strengthening families. What is that? What's the intent of the program? And what is it you do?
So Strengthening Families is a 14-week program for at-risk families. And I guess that's kind of shop speak for families that are at risk of having one of their family members fall back into substance abuse. Maybe one of their family members is already connected with corrections, is justice involved. And these are families who are just destabilized. And so Strengthening Families is a 14-week program that brings the family together to teach three core skills: helping families to connect, helping families to better communicate, and helping parents and the children in those homes set and understand limits. So those are the challenges. Often we get families that come together and they don't talk about those limits. They just get frustrated when things aren't working.
Right.
And so we want to teach those families how to invest in their relationships and their communication, and then helping parents really set good, clear limits.
Lee, I think this is one that each of these I want to add just a couple of thoughts of things you've taught me over the years and have really spoken to me. Is it's not just that person who has found themselves in a challenging position, but it's their network that's impacted as well. And that could be parents, that could be children, family, friends. It just doesn't impact that person. I think sometimes there's such a limited perspective over the impact is just that person, but really it's a whole network that's around them. And I guess what I would ask you on the Strengthen Families, and when I learned about this program, I was so encouraged by it through all the dynamics that you just shared around setting limits and helping people manage through it. Love to hear a good story, a positive impact. And I know you've got many of them, but if we could get one story so that someone can understand how Strengthening Families has helped someone.
Yeah, so our Strengthening Families programs begin every night with a family meal. That's one of the things that we try and teach, is that eating together as a family is a protective factor, and it helps support family communication. Dan and his wife and 2 kids came into Strengthening Families. Both Dan and his wife were currently at the Adult Residential Center in Johnson County. Both were incarcerated because of substance abuse and other underlying criminal activity. And their kids were right then placed with Dan's mom, but they were trying to get back together because Dan was out and his wife was out. In the middle of the program, his wife ends up relapsing and goes back into the residential center because she's committed a new crime. And Dan looks at his kids. I remember this moment, Tom. Dan looks at his kids and he said, "We've never completed anything as a family, so we're going to complete this program."
Wow.
Dan, to this day, when we start Strengthening Families, I don't know how he hears about it, but Dan hears through the grapevine that another one started back up. He will come, Tom, and sit down with those families, eat the meal on the first night, sit with the family group, and he'll look at every one of those parents and say, "I was where you are today."
Wow.
And then he'll talk about his son who's now in the military and another son who is a machinist like he is. And he'll talk about how this program gave him a tool that helped him to invest in his family.
I think sometimes we take the simple things for granted. And what I hear in that story, the intentionality of coming together and just having dinner together, such a critical moment in connection, putting down the devices, putting down the distractions, and making that happen. You remind me of some advice my grandfather gave me, which is finish. He would always say, he'd always tell me, "Tom, you've got to finish." I loved Dan's mindset around it because finishing is so critical to us making that turn in our story or beginning a new chapter. And then the last one there is giving back to others. I love that. Obviously, the program's working when others who have benefited from the program are coming back to help others in the program. What an awesome story, Lee. Thanks for sharing that. College of Trades. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, College of Trades is a program that provides 12 weeks of job stabilizing life skills. It also provides 12 weeks of some sort of certification in a skilled trade. It could be auto tech, it could be OSHA 10, it could be construction basics. And then it also connects those that are currently incarcerated at Johnson County's Adult Residential Center, which, by the way, is kind of like a work release center.
Right.
It helps them to also pair up with a mentor. The focus of that program, Tom, is we know 2 things. Number one, somebody coming out of a term of incarceration is often underskilled. Even if they had a short-term incarceration of a couple years or a year, they've lost their job and they need to get back into the workplace. And by skilling them up, we know that we'll see about a 40% reduction in recidivism. And so we want to offer the opportunity for people to skill up before they leave corrections. So the way the program works is they actually apply to get into a program. They have to go through an interview. It is a selective admission program. And then that program has 12 weeks of life skills taught by a professional from the community. These are folks that are currently in industry, retired from industry, and they teach the life skills, how to be stable in the workplace. And then we have professionals from Johnson County Community College Continuing Education that actually provide that skilled trade certification. And then we find professional mentors in the community, folks that are interested in investing in another to pair them with somebody from the residential center. In the end, we get our folks employed. And by the way, the folks that come through our program are on average making over $17 an hour. The general population is still around $13 an hour.
That's amazing. So Lee, you guys are also setting up interviews and helping them. Not only are you teaching them a trade or a vocation, but you're helping them get their first job, their next job as well.
Right. Those soft skills to do interviews, we rehearse interviewing with them and help them with that too.
So I just want to pause here on this because we talk a lot about social determinants of health, and I want to interject this in. It's a great buzzword now. People are great at creating buzzwords. You've been focused on social determinants of health before it ever became a buzzword. But when we talk about making a difference in care, we talk about making a difference in people's lives. It's about having healthy and connected families, stabilized, safe and secure homes, a place to live. In vocation, you're equipping people to be able to go do that. And what I love most about your stories is the community coming together, everyone helping each other in doing that. And I think when people are looking for what does it mean, what does social determinants of health mean, Lee, you guys are doing that. I mean, while other people are talking about it, you are rolling up the sleeves and making that happen. Same thing. Do you mind sharing a story? I'd love to hear a good news story on college. I know there's a bunch of them. If you could share one, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll share one. One of our guys, William, came through our program just about a year ago, and he came through our forklift program. He was so excited, but he had just come out of about 16 years of incarceration in the state penitentiary. He came back to Kansas City, found out about our program through the parole office, and got enrolled, came to the class, did life skills. Over the period of life skills, William and I developed a relationship. And during that time, I watched him grow in just how he interacted with people. He did problem solving different. He had a different attitude at work. So the rest of the story is he ends his time with the class, and he came back to me and he said, I'm just not making enough and I don't know what to do. And I said, it's time to do a job search. And we talked about job search. We teach this in the class, how to do an effective job search. Well, he ends up going out, finding a job at Tyson. Can I say a company name on this? Can I say Tyson?
You just did.
You have to edit that out. So he finds this job at Tyson. He's working overnights now, making over $21 an hour. And the first thing he did was he said, they're going to have me working in the freezer. He said, I don't have any kind of warm clothes. So NCircle went out and was able to purchase bib overalls and a heavy coat and insulated steel-toed boots and give him into the workplace. The whole goal here, Tom, is for us to be a resource to launch them successfully into a career. Here's a man who came out of the prison system diabetic with uncontrolled diabetes, who is now, you talk about social determinants of health. This isn't a thin line. This is a 6-lane highway of determinants of health. He now has a stable job. He has a community support. He has a place to call when he needs help. He's working at a job now that gave him health insurance. And within the next 30 days, he will be able to go to his own doctor, get prescribed medication for his diabetes, and start getting healthy.
Lee, I got to be honest, I'm frustrated right now. These are the stories we need to be talking about. These are the things that we need to be sharing. Everyone's out there ranting around the things that they don't like or they want to see better. And here NCircle is doing amazing work. This is why we're doing this podcast today, is because people need to hear about these stories. There's amazing things going on as people press in, and instead of critiquing the situation, are lending a helping hand in finding our way. What amazing, powerful story. And that story isn't about someone getting a job. It's not about someone getting better health care or finding better clothes to be able to do their job. You've given that person a new chapter and a new path in life. So many times the answers and the things we're looking for out there and asking why aren't they better begin within. And it speaks to your tagline of better together. Sorry, I just had to rant there a little bit because I hear these things and I'm like, it's not that complicated. If we would just work together, some amazing things can happen. So let's hit on the third one, the third program, Discovery for Teens. What's that one all about?
So Discovery for Teen takes a justice-involved teen. These are kids that are currently, right now, they're on probation in Johnson County or under the care of court services. They may be on diversion in Johnson County. The point is they've got a justice involvement. And those youth need a vision for their future. What we encounter, Tom, is that about 80% of the kids that come to our program are either in a GED completion program or in a alternative school that's teaching to the state minimums. Then a few of those have dropped out. About 20% are still in high school and will graduate. So think of it, Tom, when you and I were in high school, we took shop class. When you and I were in high school, we took electives like debate or theater. We did those things. These students don't have any of those opportunities. Add on to that, when I was in middle school, I watched my dad work in the shop and I had a hammer and a saw and I did work next to him. I learned how to do that stuff. Most of these kids are at the last rope at home and parents are so frustrated that they're not investing those things in their kids.
Yeah.
So now we get a kid that comes into Discovery. For 5 weeks, we focus on what does it look like for 5 different nights, 1 night a week. We look at what is their work interest. We actually use a validated instrument called ONET. It's through the Kansas or the national, it's Department of Commerce. We then take them through an assessment the next night of what their values are and what their goals are for life. You know what, Tom? You're not going to be surprised because they're human beings, but every teenager that I've met with has a value that is other than being incarcerated the rest of their life.
Yeah.
They all want something other than that.
Yeah.
And so they begin to express those values. The third night, we get practical and we say, if you get just a year's worth of education, get into this career track, your choice, what you want to do, look at your earning potential. And we put that into a formula that helps them assess what would it be like living in Johnson County right now, making minimum wage at McDonald's, or if I actually had a construction certification, I'm making $45,000 a year after a year. Then the last thing we do is we talk about coachability. The 5th week of our program, Tom, we take them on a tour of continuing education at Johnson County Community College, and we show them what it's like to go to school inside of a place where you're actually working on cars, not sitting in a classroom. And the light bulb goes on for these kids. You mean school isn't about beige walls and textbooks? No, it's about getting your hands dirty and walking home with grease under your fingers.
Yeah.
And then they have a vision for what school is. That program's about to mature a little bit, and this is something we are working with Kansas Department of Corrections for a grant for, but we are working to provide now a 5-week lab to follow up this 5-week program where they actually get to spend a night in auto shop, a night in construction, a night in electrical. And then they can come out with some real experiences and start to discern what they want to do around education and a future career.
You know, I think, Lee, I'm learning some new things. I thought I knew all these programs. This one, I didn't know as much as you just shared. And I know for myself personally, life, work, my pursuits began to click when I saw the application. It wasn't just the textbook. I honestly got a little bored with some of the textbook stuff in the classroom. And it wasn't until I got my hands-on involved in being able to see what's possible. And I know you call this Discovery for Teens. I think it's called Dare to Dream. Because I think what you're doing, Lee, is what we all need. When we lose hope, when it becomes so dark we can't find our way, we stop dreaming and we start seeing what's possible. And I love the fact that you're igniting the light, the dream, the possibilities, and most importantly, they see them in it. It's not someone else, it's them. And when that happens, anything and everything is possible. And it's not just them, but it's the fact that you and the team have come around them and given them an amazing network, encouragement that there's no reason why this can't be you right here, right now. And that's when everything changes. I'd love to hear a story on this one, Lee.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would guess the absolute most recent story is we have one of our kids. We run this program in Douglas County as well. And so we have one of these kids that just came out of our program, and we'll call him Dylan. And Dylan came and graduated. He was placed outside of the home. He had been in foster care. He was staying with a grandma. Grandma was single, didn't have any time to didn't really have any knowledge on how to invest in this kid. And he was pretty much wasting away in corrections and playing his Xbox. When he came to our program, he kept saying, I want to be a welder. I want to be a welder. And so we ended up getting him the final week. We got him on a tour at Peasley Tech, and he lit up when he saw their welding department. And so he wanted to do that. They didn't have a welding program for him. So Mary, my instructor, she's an adjunct professor of physics. And so she's like this uber bright woman, and she's helping these kids get into these skilled trades, but she's relentless in helping them. And so she kept on him. We got him enrolled at Johnson County Community College. He is right now in his third semester doing welding. And we check in, and he is so excited because he sees, that practical application.
Yeah.
He sees that.
Yeah.
And he's getting to do it. And he's not spending hours sitting inside a classroom with a textbook open. He's getting a little bit burnt, and he's walking home tired from class because he's lifting metal, welding metal, and learning. And he is beyond excited about the potential. Now, the nice thing is, Tom, is a lot of these kids come from places where they don't have a lot of money.
Right.
So we have a grant that pays for that.
Wow.
So it lets them get that.
I mean, not only are you equipping them, you're helping find the way for them to go make it happen. So, yep. I mean, just powerful. And I think you look at the last couple of years, and we're still just now even understanding the impact that this pandemic has had. And I think we better understand the mental health and wellness piece of it. And I think so much we all begin to wire narratives at time that aren't always true. It's just circumstances that we find ourselves in, Lee. And Discovery for Teens is, hey, let me walk with you. I'm not going to walk for you. Right. I'm not going to walk behind you. I'm not going to walk in front of you. I'm going to walk beside you and help you find your way. Been there, done that. You can do it too. And man, there's something so powerful that you give a person when they're able to discover that themselves and go make it. I mean, 3 amazing programs, Strengthening Families, College of Trades, Discovery for Teens, things that are applicable and happening right now. These aren't things that we're just talking about. These are things that you've been doing. Lee, let's think forward. Sure. I mean, you've been at this for a little over 10 years. I know you've done it longer, but for NCircle, what is the vision? If you could think forward on what you hope to impact in the community, to that person who's listening today, who's wondering, where does this go? What would you tell them?
So, Tom, first of all, I would look at this. Johnson County has, on any given week, around 500 people on probation. And I don't know the number on parole. That's just in Johnson County. So we'll just start there.
And Johnson County is a representation of a community across this country. So take that and multiply it by thousands across this country. I mean, not even going outside the domestic U.S. The numbers you just gave, to put everyone into context, Johnson County is a community that looks like thousands of communities across this country. Sorry, I just wanted to give that context to everyone, Lee.
Right, and I appreciate that. And that's where I look at this. I think my goal would be more of the same, but more communities investing in this way. Early on in starting this, I was asked if we wanted to start the same program in Sedgwick County, for example. And Tom, you know me, I'm not a guy that's looking to build an empire.
Right.
What I'm a guy that wants to do is I want to empower communities to be better together. That whole tagline came from Robert Putnam's book, Better Together. And I learned so much as I read how communities came together to solve deep, thick social problems. And so when I was asked that about Sedgwick County, I said, no, but I'll meet with you guys and help you. And so they started their own welding program.
Wow.
And they are now doing that same thing through a release center in Sedgwick County. My goal would be to see communities come together, use their unique gifts and their unique partnerships that are already embedded in those communities, and then coach those communities and help them to do the same thing. But to meet the needs as each community is unique. Not every community has a Johnson County Community College, but there are ways to get training and education and support to people who are working and releasing in those communities. If I look at the near future, it's finding ways for us to expand our programming to other communities where there are other resources like what we have here. Metropolitan Community College met with nonprofits on the Missouri side, trying to figure out how to expand this model there. Kansas City, Kansas, there's a brand new release center in KCMO. I would love to see more people coming together to provide a network of community support. But it can't just be tax dollars paying for this, Tom. We cannot tax ourselves into a solution. It cannot just be coming to large nonprofits and foundations like yours and saying, hey, give us the money to do this. We have to create a braided funding, braided effort, braided sweat equity, and that way we create something that's sustainable in communities.
Well, Lee, I love that you're very transparent and honest about that. And I think so many times people are like, how can I contribute? Is there a donation? And I like that you said sweat equity. I know that if people are wondering if there's a place or a need for them to help, the answer is yes. The difference we seek to make begins within us. And really, that's what Everyday Matters is about. Everyday Matters is about what can we do in word and deed to contribute to the betterment of our community, to make a difference in the words we speak and the deeds we do in helping one another. And today, what you've heard is an example of someone doing that. Lee had a vision, he and his team 10 years ago. It's not a big team. I say that as a compliment. We and I were joking about that beforehand, but he could have looked at the walls. He could have stared at the obstacles, and he didn't. He chose to make a difference. It's not been easy. I know firsthand because I've had those conversations with Lee. He dares to dream, no question about that, finds a way. But most important, he sees the person in every human being, the heart, the opportunity, the potential for everyone to find their way and to write an amazing story, to be their best selves. And I guess, Lee, that's why I wanted to have you on today, is I think in a time and an age when we need more inspiration, these are the conversations that we need to be having. And not just about potential, but these are things that are happening right now that are changing lives in our community. And instead, we get caught up in so much other noise when there's so many good things happening. Lee, last question, and we'll land here, and then I'll give a couple of thoughts, is to that person who's out there right now listening to this podcast, and maybe they're a person in need looking for help. Maybe they find themselves wondering what that next turn is, where they need to go take that next step. Or maybe there's a person out there who is moved and inspired by the work that wants to help. How would you encourage them, and what would you tell them to do?
Well, I'll start with the person who needs to take the next step. They're wondering if there's hope. Tom, I don't care what community they are, because NetSmart's reach is way beyond Johnson County. But whatever community they're in, if they send me an email, I will do what I can to look up their community and find those connection points. Because ultimately, it's about finding connections in your community. We are better together when we can connect with people local who understand our local needs and who understand how to walk with us in the midst of those trials. Tom, you and I alone can't do that. Even just the group that's listening to this can't do that. We have to be a community that supports each other. So if somebody were in need, I would simply work to find them a connection point and then let them begin to walk that path with someone else who understands. In Johnson County, anybody's welcome to reach out to me, especially if they're coming out of incarceration or have a family member that's incarcerated. I'd love to be a part of a support network and connect them to my network, because my network is much richer than I am. My network is filled with gifts. So that would be the first. Then to those who are listening saying, how can we connect? My network needs new network. You know what I mean? It's simple as saying, I have a gift. How can I share?
Right.
In the work we do, I will take anybody who will do anything from their family of 4, make a meal, bring it to Strengthening Families. We start again this May. Bring it to Strengthening Families and simply sit down and eat with families, serve them a meal, and simply build a relationship that way. They could do that one time and make an impact. Tom, they could help with childcare. They could come and help us and be a mentor, spend 6 months to a year with somebody who's coming out of incarceration, who wants to relaunch with a vision. Most of the people listening to this podcast have a vision. I would love for them to share and equip others to see their own vision and their own gifts. So those would be the things. Find a place to build a relationship with us and then walk with somebody. Some people may want to say they can offer gifts and teach. There's all kinds of ways. If somebody's interested, they could reach out to me, and I'm guessing I'll find a way to connect them.
Lee, and I'll include that in the notes in the podcast contact information. If people wanted to find out more about NCircle, what's the place that they should go to?
Absolutely. The web, and it's www.incircle.org, and it's the capital letter N and then the word circle.
And I'll include that as well, and we'll be sure to share that. And I want to recap one thing, and I'll land here for us. Lee, thank you. Just my heartfelt thanks. I'm a better person that our paths have crossed. You challenge me to be better in all personas in life, whether that's a friend, my family, as a fellow associate here, and engagement in the community. And your one bit of advice resonates deeply. Find a place to build a relationship and walk with them. I think in a time and age when people need to know that they're not alone, that we're in this together, that we're better together, is now more than ever. I think often we're looking for how can we make the differences, and today we just heard those differences are happening. And true to the name of this podcast, true to the name of our foundation, every day matters.
Yes.
Every day matters. We have an opportunity to be the difference, to be the light for someone, to speak a word to dramatically change someone's life. What Lee just said, just sitting with someone at dinner to let them know you matter right here, right now. That's what's going to make our communities healthy and thriving. That's how we're going to overcome the obstacles, when we roll up the sleeves and we find a way to make a difference. Thank you for listening. Please continue to share your thoughts and ideas around different topics that we'll talk about. We'll definitely have Lee back. I'm not even going to ask him. Lee's going to come back. We're going to talk more about this in a few months as we share out there. And thank you all. I know there's many of you listening today that are doing that already. Let's encourage those around us to continue. Much appreciation. Until next time, this is Tom Herzog. Thank you for everything you do.
You've been listening to Everyday Matters, a NetSmart podcast. Keep connected with us by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you like what you've heard, please rate the show. That helps us keep sharing the stories that inspire our communities. Thanks for listening. Until next time.